Jace had never seen anything like it. The stars, the strange light, the way his spaceship was spiraling out of control. Everything happened so fast. One moment, he was gazing out the window, admiring the view of distant galaxies. The next, his ship shuddered violently, warning lights flashing across the console. He gripped the controls, trying desperately to steady the craft. But it was no use. The ship was falling, and it was falling fast. Crash. The world around Jace went dark as the impact rattled his bones and threw him against the hard seat. Pain coursed through his body as he struggled to stay conscious. He could hear the distant, eerie sounds of the wreckage, the groaning metal of his ship bending and breaking. Slowly, through the haze of pain, he tried to move. His seatbelt had become tangled, and his fingers, though trembling, worked to free himself. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. He couldn't tell. The only thing he knew was that he was alone, stranded on a strange planet. As he crawled out of the wreckage, he noticed a strange mist swirling around him, the air thick and unfamiliar. This wasn't Earth. The ground was rocky, dark, and harsh. It was nothing like the lush green landscapes he'd seen back home. His heart raced as panic set in, but before he could think about his next move, a soft sound caught his attention. Footsteps. Jace turned, eyes wide with disbelief. There, stepping out from behind a large rock formation, was a figure. A woman, tall and graceful, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered with a faint blue hue, and her hair, long and silver, flowed behind her like liquid starlight. Her presence was overwhelming, like she belonged to a different world, one far more beautiful and terrifying than his own. Jace opened his mouth to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. He didn't know what to say. His mind raced, trying to comprehend what he was seeing. The woman, however, seemed to know exactly what to do. She knelt beside him, her gaze softening as she examined his injuries. Her touch was gentle but firm as she carefully pressed a glowing stone against his wounds. "Stay still," she said, her voice melodic and calm. "You are safe now." Jace blinked, the pain in his body starting to dull as the stone in her hand began to hum with a quiet power. He wanted to ask who she was, where he was, but the words wouldn't come. His mind felt foggy, as though he couldn't think straight. The woman's lips curled into a soft smile as she looked at him with a strange kind of sympathy. "You are lucky I found you," she said. "My name is Orinia. I am a princess of the Dithrain kingdom." Jace's eyes widened even further. A princess. He'd read about alien cultures and species, but nothing could have prepared him for this. He tried to speak, but once again, his voice failed him. Orinia's expression softened as she helped him to his feet. "You will be fine. You are safe now." Jace didn't know what to say. He didn't understand why she was helping him, why she had come to his rescue. But in that moment, something inside him told him that this strange alien princess had just changed his life forever. The days after the crash were a blur for Jace. At first, everything was too much to process. His ship had been destroyed, and he had no idea where he was. He should have been scared, but instead, he felt a strange sense of calm whenever Orinia was near. She took care of him, feeding him strange but nourishing foods and giving him water that seemed to heal his wounds faster than anything on Earth could. Every day, she taught him something new. How to find shelter in the rocky terrain, how to read the stars in this strange sky, and even how to communicate in her language, which sounded like music when she spoke. Jace struggled at first, his human tongue not used to the different sounds, but Orinia was patient, repeating words over and over until he got them right. "Dithra," she said one evening, pointing to the stars above. "This is my home." Jace looked up at the sky, trying to understand what she meant. The stars were unlike anything he had ever seen. They seemed so much closer here, twinkling with a strange intensity, as though they were alive. He wondered if these stars were part of the reason this planet felt so different from Earth. The air, the landscape, even the sound of the wind. It was all strange to him, but Arinia made him feel like it was all somehow normal. Over the weeks, Jace grew stronger. His wounds healed, and his body began to adapt to the new environment. The pain from the crash faded, but the memory of Arinia's kindness stayed with him. She never left his side, and despite the many dangers of Dithra, she always seemed to know how to protect him. She showed him the ways of the planet, introducing him to its strange creatures, and guiding him through the forests where the trees glowed in the dark. "You're not like the others," Jace said one evening, sitting beside her as they watched the sun set over the horizon. The sky was painted in hues of purple and pink, and the world felt peaceful. Arinia looked at him, her expression soft. "The others see humans as weak," she said. "They don't understand you." Jace frowned, unsure what she meant. "What do you mean?" Arinia hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "My people, the Dithrans, have never seen humans as equals. They believe we are superior, but I see you differently." Jace stared at her in surprise. He had never thought of himself as anything special. To him, he was just an ordinary human. But Arinia's words made him feel as though he was more than that. He wondered if he could ever live up to the respect she showed him. As the days passed, Jace realized that his feelings for Arinia were changing. She had been his savior, his protector, but now she was becoming something more. She was his friend, his guide, and he felt a bond growing between them, one that he couldn't explain but couldn't deny. One morning, as they walked through the forest, Arinia stopped and looked at him with a serious expression. "Jace," she said, "you are not safe here. My people will find us soon. When they do, they will not be kind to you." Jace's heart raced. He had grown used to Arinia's presence, but he had never thought about what might happen if her people found out about him. He looked at her, fear and confusion flooding his mind. "What will happen?" he asked. Arinia's eyes darkened. "I don't know, but I promise you, I will protect you." Jace wasn't sure if he should believe her or if he should be afraid. But in that moment, he realized that no matter what happened next, he trusted her. He had no choice but to. The months on Dithra felt like a lifetime to Jace. Under Arinia's care, he learned more than he ever thought possible. Yet despite her kindness, the reality of his situation never left him. He wasn't meant to be here. He was a human, lost on a distant world, surrounded by people who saw him as little more than a curiosity. One day, as Jace sat on a rocky outcrop overlooking the glowing plains, Arinia approached him. She had a look on her face that Jace had learned to recognize, determination mixed with sadness. "I have to let you go, Jace," she said softly. "The people of Dithra are too powerful. If they discover you, they will come after you." Jace felt his stomach tighten. He had known this day would come, but he hadn't been ready for it. His time on Dithra had been a dream. He had come to rely on Arinia, to trust her in a way he had never trusted anyone before. "Where will I go?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Arinia's eyes softened. "Back to Earth. It's the only safe place for you now." Jace stared at her in disbelief. "I don't want to leave you." Arinia placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch gentle but firm. "You must. You are not safe here, and I cannot protect you forever. If you stay, you risk both our lives." Jace felt a wave of emotion rise in him. He had never felt more conflicted in his life. He knew she was right. His presence on Dithra had already caused too much trouble, and staying any longer would only put them both in danger. But the thought of leaving her, of going back to a world that felt so empty without her, was unbearable. "I will never forget you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved my life, Arinia. I owe you everything." Arinia's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but she didn't let them fall. "Promise me one thing, Jace. Don't forget who you are, and never forget me." Jace nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. The next day, Arinia arranged for a ship to take him back to Earth. As the ship lifted off, Jace looked out the window, catching one last glimpse of the alien world that had become his home. Arinia stood on the surface, her figure small against the vastness of Dithra's blue sky. He could feel her gaze on him, even from this distance, and he promised himself that he would never forget her. Years passed. Back on Earth, Jace tried to move on with his life, but it was impossible. The memory of Dithra haunted him. He threw himself into his studies, working on space exploration, and trying to forget about the alien princess who had saved him. But it wasn't enough. Every time he looked at the stars, he saw her face, glowing with kindness and strength. He kept his promise to Arinia. He never forgot her. But as the years went by, the world around him changed, and so did he. He grew older, wiser, but something inside him remained the same. His heart still belonged to her. Then, one day, out of nowhere, a strange message appeared in his inbox. It was from a source he didn't recognize. The words were simple, but the message was clear. "I'm coming for you, Jace. Arinia." Jace's heart skipped a beat. He read the message over and over, unsure of what it meant. Could it be her? After all these years, he knew one thing for sure. His life was about to change again. And this time, he wouldn't be the one to leave. Jace sat at his desk, staring at the glowing screen in front of him. The message from Arinia had been sitting there for hours, and he couldn't bring himself to delete it. Each time he read it, his heart raced with confusion and excitement. "I'm coming for you, Jace. Arinia." The words were simple, yet they held so much meaning. Arinia, the alien princess who had saved his life years ago, was coming back for him. But why? What had changed? He hadn't heard from her since that fateful day when she had sent him back to Earth. It seemed impossible that she would return now, but the message was clear. Jace stood up, pacing around his small apartment. His mind raced with questions, but he couldn't find any answers. He hadn't thought about her in a while. He had buried those memories deep inside, trying to live a normal life on Earth. But now, everything was different. His past with Arinia was coming back to him, and he didn't know how to handle it. He glanced at the clock. It was late, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. He grabbed his jacket and left his apartment, heading outside to clear his mind. The cool night air hit his face, but it did little to calm his nerves. As he walked down the quiet street, his thoughts returned to the last time he saw Arinia. Her words, her touch. He could still remember it all as if it had happened yesterday. He had never imagined she would come back for him. The Dithran people were proud and powerful, and they had never seen humans as equals. For Arinia to risk everything to return to Earth for him, it was unimaginable. But now, it was real. He had to figure out what it all meant. What would she want? Why was she coming back after all these years? Was it love or something else? His thoughts were interrupted by the sudden whine of a ship's engines. He looked up, squinting against the night sky. A glowing light appeared, growing brighter as it descended toward Earth. His heart skipped a beat. There was no mistaking it. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was sleek and alien, surrounded by a shimmering aura of light. Jace stood frozen, his breath catching in his throat. The ship landed smoothly in a nearby clearing, its engines humming softly as it powered down. For a moment, everything was silent. Then the hatch opened. Arinia stepped out, her figure glowing softly in the dim light of Earth's moon. Her silver hair caught the wind, and her blue skin shimmered faintly, just as he remembered. She was still the same, elegant, powerful, and breathtaking. But there was something different in her eyes, something more determined, more resolute. Jace's feet moved before his mind could catch up, and he found himself running toward her. His heart raced as he got closer, and before he knew it, he was standing before her, gazing into her familiar eyes. "Arinia," he breathed, unable to hide the amazement in his voice. She smiled, but there was a sadness behind it. "Jace, I've come back for you." The words hit him like a wave, crashing over him with a mix of disbelief and joy. He had dreamed of this moment for so long, but now that it was here, he didn't know what to say. His mind raced, trying to make sense of everything, but all he could focus on was her. She was real, standing before him, just as beautiful and strong as she had been all those years ago. "What's happening?" Jace finally managed to ask. "Why now? After all this time?" Orinia took a deep breath, her gaze turning serious. "Because I can't stay away any longer. And there is something important I must tell you." Jace's heart skipped a beat, wondering what she meant. He couldn't imagine what could be so important, but he knew one thing for sure. Whatever it was, it would change everything. Jace stood in awe, staring at Orinia as she stood before him, just like he remembered. She was even more magnificent than he had imagined over the years. The way her silver hair caught the light, the soft glow of her blue skin, it all felt unreal. Yet here she was, standing in front of him, her eyes filled with emotion and determination. "Orinia," Jace whispered again, still unsure if this was a dream. He had waited so long for this moment, and now that it had come, he didn't know what to say. His heart was racing, his mind struggling to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions. Orinia smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "Jace, I've come to see you. I couldn't stay away any longer." His chest tightened. But why now? After all these years? She hesitated for a moment before stepping closer, her presence overwhelming. "Things have changed. There are forces on Dithra that want to see you gone. The kingdom will not tolerate your existence on their world any longer. I cannot protect you alone anymore. I need your help." Jace blinked in confusion. "Help? What do you mean?" Orania's gaze hardened, the soft warmth in her eyes replaced by the cold seriousness of a ruler. "The Dithran kingdom is at a crossroads. There are factions within my court who believe our people should conquer other worlds, including Mirth. I've spent years trying to prevent this, but my power alone is not enough. I've tried everything I can to keep the peace." Jace's mind raced. He had always known that Dithra was a powerful civilization, but this was beyond what he could imagine. "But why come to me? I'm just a human. I don't have any power." Orinia placed a hand gently on his arm. "You don't understand, Jace. Your survival here, your very presence on Dithra, means something. It's a symbol that our worlds can coexist. The Dithrans don't see it that way. They believe in dominance, not peace. But you," she paused, searching for the right words, "you are proof that it's possible, and I need you to help me show them." Jace stood frozen, the weight of her words sinking in. He had never imagined that his life would be the key to stopping a war between two civilizations. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, just a human who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now he was at the center of something far bigger than himself. "But why me?" he asked again, his voice barely a whisper. Orinia stepped back, her gaze softening. "Because, Jace, you have something that Dithra doesn't. You see the world with fresh eyes, free from the burden of centuries of history and power struggles. You remind us of what we've lost, and I believe you are the key to bringing us together." Jace felt his heart swell with a mix of pride and fear. He wasn't sure what he was supposed to do. He wasn't a leader, just a man who had survived a crash and been saved by an alien princess. But now he had a role to play in a struggle that was much larger than him. "What do you want me to do?" he asked, his voice steady but unsure. Orania's expression grew even more serious. "I need you to stand with me, Jace. I need you to help me bring peace to both of our worlds. Will you do that?" Jace took a deep breath, the weight of her words pressing down on him. This was no longer about personal feelings or what had happened in the past. This was about the future of two worlds, and somehow it had become his responsibility to make a choice. He looked into Orania's eyes, the same eyes that had once shown him kindness and hope. Slowly, he nodded. "I will help you, Orinia. I don't know how, but I will. Arenia's face softened, her smile returning, and Jace felt a small spark of hope ignite in his chest. Together, they would fight for a future they both believed in. But he knew that the road ahead would be far from easy. The days following Arenia's arrival were filled with tension. Jace had agreed to stand by her side, to help her in the fight for peace between their worlds. But with each passing day, the weight of his decision grew heavier. He wasn't a politician or a leader. He was just a man who had been saved by a princess. Yet now he found himself caught in a political struggle he never expected. Arenia was doing everything she could to prepare him for the challenges ahead. She introduced him to the Council of Dithra, explaining the various factions vying for control of the kingdom. Some supported her vision of peace, while others believed in domination and expansion. The council meetings were tense, filled with sharp words and glances, and Jace found himself caught in the middle, unsure of how to contribute. "I don't belong here," Jace said one night, his voice heavy with frustration. "I'm just a human. I don't know anything about ruling a kingdom or leading a war." Arenia sat beside him, her presence calm and reassuring. "You may not know the ways of politics, but you know something far more important, what it means to live freely. That is something Dithra needs now. We are trapped in old ways of thinking. You remind me of what we've lost." Jace looked at her, his heart beating faster. He had never felt more confused in his life. Arenia's words made him feel special, like he had a purpose in this grand struggle. But it also made him realize just how much he didn't understand about the world she came from. Still, one thing was clear. No matter how uncertain he felt, he couldn't walk away. Not now. As the days turned into weeks, their bond deepened. Arenia had been a protector, a savior, and now she was something else to Jace, someone he cared for more deeply than he had ever expected. She taught him the intricacies of Dithran politics, explaining the delicate balance between the ruling families and the growing factions. She also shared stories of her childhood, of the traditions, and the responsibility she had inherited as the princess of Dithra. Despite the growing political unrest, there were moments of peace between them, moments where it was just Jace and Arenia, away from the pressures of the kingdom. They would take long walks in the royal gardens, the air thick with the scent of strange, glowing flowers, and talk about their hopes and dreams. Jace found himself laughing at stories from Arenia's past, and in turn, he shared his own memories of Earth, of the things he missed. The sound of wind through trees, the feel of grass beneath his feet. But not everyone was pleased with their growing closeness. One evening, Jace attended a formal gathering at the palace, a celebration in honor of Dithra's achievements. As he walked through the crowded hall, he felt the eyes of the court on him. Whispers followed him wherever he went, and he could sense the unease in the air. At one point, a nobleman approached, his expression cold and calculating. "You should know, human," the nobleman said, his voice dripping with disdain, "that your presence here is not welcome. The people of Dithra will not accept a union between our princess and a creature like you." Jace's fists clenched at his sides, but before he could respond, Arenia appeared at his side. Her gaze was fierce as she addressed the nobleman. "Jace is more than you could ever understand," she said, her voice firm. "He is my ally, and he will be treated with respect." The nobleman sneered but bowed before walking away, muttering under his breath. Arenia's hand found Jace's, and she squeezed it gently. "You are stronger than they realize," she said softly, her eyes meeting his with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. Jace looked at her, his heart filled with admiration. "I don't want to be the cause of more conflict," he admitted. "I don't want to make things worse." "You're not causing the conflict, Jace," Arenia replied. "The conflict was already here. You are the answer to it." Jace took a deep breath, feeling a mix of fear and determination. He had never been a fighter, but he was beginning to realize that sometimes the hardest battles were the ones fought with words, not weapons. And as Arenia's ally, He was ready to fight for her, for them, for a future where both Dithra and Earth could live in peace. The tension in the air on Dithra was becoming unbearable. Jace could feel it in every corner of the palace. There were whispers behind closed doors, eyes that followed his every move, and glances full of distrust. The Dithran people, many of whom had never even seen a human before, were watching him closely. The ones who disagreed with Arenia's vision made no secret of their disdain for him. The royal court was divided, those loyal to Arenia and her peaceful vision, and those who saw him, a human, as a threat to the kingdom's strength and honor. Jace had always thought of himself as just a regular guy. But here, on this alien world, he felt like a symbol. His presence was a reminder of what Arenia stood for, a future where different worlds could coexist. But it also became the spark for the growing unrest. Jace spent more time in the palace now, attending meetings with Arenia and the council. The discussions were filled with heated debates, accusations, and demands. Some of the council members argued that Arenia's decision to welcome him into her life was weakening Dithra's authority. Others believed that allowing an outsider to influence their future would lead to chaos. But it wasn't just the council members who opposed her. Rumors spread like wildfire, and the palace soon became a place of constant tension. There was talk of rebellion among the factions who wanted Dithra to remain untouched by foreign influence, and Jace could see how they began to rally their supporters. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Arenia led Jace to the royal gardens, away from the noise and chaos of the palace. The peacefulness of the garden contrasted sharply with the unrest that had taken over the palace. The scent of blooming alien flowers filled the air, and the soft glow of the trees created a sense of calm that Jace desperately needed. "This can't go on much longer," Jace said, his voice low with concern. "I can feel the eyes on us. The whispers are getting louder." Arenia sighed, her face shadowed by the weight of the situation. "I know," she replied softly. "The kingdom is divided, and it's becoming harder to keep the peace. Some are ready to take drastic measures to remove you from Dithra." Jace clenched his fists. He had known things weren't easy, but hearing it from Arenia made the danger feel real. "I never wanted this," he admitted. "I just wanted to be with you, to help you. I didn't expect the entire kingdom to be at war because of it." Arenia looked at him with a mixture of sadness and determination. "I never expected it either, but we can't turn back now. I promised you I would protect you, and I will, even if it means going against the very people who raised me." Jace stared at her, his heart swelling with admiration. Despite the risks and the opposition she faced, she was standing strong. She wasn't going to back down. He could see it in her eyes. Arenia wasn't just a princess. She was a leader, a force to be reckoned with, and she would fight for what she believed in. But as much as Jace admired her, he knew that they couldn't do it alone. The kingdom's opposition was growing stronger every day, and soon they would have to make a choice. Would they fight for peace, or would they give in to the voices of war and division? "I don't know what's going to happen next," Jace said, his voice full of uncertainty. "But I'm with you, Arenia. I'll stand by your side, no matter what." Arenia smiled, a genuine warmth spreading across her face. "Together, we can make a difference, Jace. We just have to believe in that." As they stood together in the quiet garden, the weight of the world pressing down on their shoulders, they both knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time, Jace truly understood that they were in this fight together. And together, they would face whatever came next. Jace could feel the weight of the world shifting as Arenia's mission began to gain attention, not just on Dithra, but on Earth as well. The arrival of an alien princess had been shocking enough, but now, her mission to unite their worlds was becoming a matter of global importance. The world governments were divided. Some saw this as an opportunity to advance human technology and gain allies in the stars. Others feared that Dithra's power would come with demands they weren't ready to meet. Jace had never expected to be caught in the middle of such a complex situation. He was just a man, an ordinary human. But now he was part of something much larger. And every conversation he had, every meeting he attended with Arinia, made it clear that he had to choose a side. The tension was growing, and Jace felt like he was standing on a cliff, looking down at an uncertain future. "Jace," Arinia said one evening, as they sat in her private quarters, "the situation on Earth is getting worse. Your people are afraid. They don't trust me. They don't understand why I'm here." Jace ran a hand through his hair, frustration rising in his chest. "I don't understand why they can't see what I see. You're not here to conquer them. You're here to help. Why can't they get that?" Arinia looked at him, her expression soft. "Fear is a powerful thing. They don't know what to expect from us. They only know what they've been told. It's easier to believe the worst." Jace felt a pang of guilt. He had tried to convince Earth's leaders that Arinia meant no harm, but every time he spoke, he was met with skepticism. The news had spread like wildfire, and soon the whole world was talking about the princess, about Dithra, and about the unknown consequences of their arrival. He knew the fear of the unknown often led to the worst assumptions, but it still hurt to see his people rejecting Arinia when he knew, deep down, that she was their best hope. A few days later, Jace was called into a high-stakes meeting with Earth's top officials. The room was cold, filled with representatives from various governments, all staring at him with judgment in their eyes. They had questions about Arinia's intentions, about what this alliance would mean for humanity, and about how much control they would have in the relationship. The meeting was tense, and Jace could feel the pressure building with every passing moment. He had always been a quiet, reserved person, but now, as the representative of Earth's people, he found himself speaking up more than he ever had before. He defended Arinia's character, her vision for peace, and the chance for both worlds to work together. "The Dithrans are not here to control us," Jace said, standing tall at the head of the table. "They don't want to take over. They want to learn from us, just as much as we want to learn from them. Arinia believes in the future we can build together. I've seen it with my own eyes. She wants peace, not power." But the response was not what he had hoped for. "And what about the factions on Dithra that want to expand their empire?" one of the officials asked, his voice sharp. "If they want to conquer other worlds, how can we trust them?" Jace hesitated, the question hanging in the air like a heavy weight. He knew about the factions. He had heard Arinia talk about the dangers of those who wanted war. But he also knew that there was more to the story, that Arinia was fighting a battle not just for her people, but for a future where humans and aliens could live in harmony. "I can't promise that there won't be challenges," Jace said honestly. "But I can promise that Arinia is on the right side. She is doing everything she can to prevent war, and she's not alone. We can be part of this change, but we have to choose to believe in it." The room fell silent, and for a moment, Jace felt like he was fighting an uphill battle. It wasn't just about him or Arinia anymore. It was about the future of both their worlds, and it seemed that no one was willing to make that leap of faith. That night, after the meeting, Jace met with Arinia in the royal gardens. She was sitting by the glowing trees, her gaze distant, as if lost in thought. "I tried," Jace said softly, sitting beside her. "I told them everything I could, but I don't think they're ready to trust you." Arinia looked at him, her expression a mixture of sadness and determination. "I knew it wouldn't be easy, but we can't give up. We will keep trying, and together we will prove them wrong." Jace nodded, his heart heavy with uncertainty, but also filled with resolve. "I believe in you, Arinia, and I believe in what we can build together." Arinia smiled, her hand finding his. "Then we'll fight for that future, Jace, no matter what." The days were growing shorter as the tension between Earth and Dithra reached a boiling point. Jace felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. He had always thought that his life would be simple. He had never imagined that he would be caught in the middle of an interplanetary crisis, with the future of two worlds resting on the choices they made now. Arenia's people were divided. The factions that wanted war were growing stronger, and the peaceful factions were beginning to lose hope. The Dithran kingdom was on the edge of collapse, and Jace knew that the longer they waited, the harder it would be to stop the violence from spilling over. Jace sat in his room, staring out the window at the stars, his mind racing with thoughts of the future. He had been torn between two worlds ever since he first met Arenia. He knew that his presence was part of the reason Dithra was in turmoil, but he also knew that without him, the hope of peace would likely fade away. Arenia had come to Earth with a dream of unity between their worlds, and she believed in him. But as the pressure built, Jace wasn't so sure he could be the hero everyone expected him to be. Suddenly, a soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. Jace turned and saw Arenia standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "Jace, we need to talk," she said quietly, stepping into the room. He nodded, standing up. "About what?" "I know what's happening, Arenia. I can feel it. The factions on Dithra are growing stronger, and Earth isn't ready to trust you." She stepped closer, her eyes intense. "I need you to make a choice, Jace. I've tried to keep the peace, but it's no longer enough. The kingdom is on the verge of civil war, and there are those who want to use our alliance with Earth for their own gain. If we don't act now, it could be too late." Jace felt his heart pound. He had known this moment was coming. The moment when he would have to decide whether to stay and fight or walk away. But he had never imagined how difficult it would be. He wanted to believe that peace was possible, that the future could be better. But the risk, the weight of everything that was at stake, it was terrifying. "What do you need me to do?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Arenia's eyes softened. "I need you to stand with me. I need you to help me convince Earth's leaders to join us. But it's more than that. I need you to stand by my side when we face the rebels on Dithra. If we can't unite the kingdom, there won't be a future for either of us." Jace took a deep breath, the gravity of her words sinking in. He thought back to the peaceful nights they had spent together, walking through the glowing gardens, talking about the future. The future was always something he had dreamed of, something that seemed so far away. But now, the future was here, and it was in his hands. "Arenia, I don't know if I can do this," Jace admitted, his voice shaking. "I'm just a man. I'm not a leader, not a hero." She reached out and placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm and steady. "You are more than you realize, Jace. You are the bridge between our worlds. You remind me of what we've lost, and you're the reason we can still find a way forward. You are the answer to all of this." Jace looked into her eyes, and for the first time, he understood. This wasn't just about him or her. It was about them. It was about the future of Dithra and Earth, and the love they shared. This was his chance to make a difference, to stand by her side, and fight for something greater than himself. "I'll do it," he said finally, his voice steady. "I'll stand with you, Arenia. I'll help you bring peace." A smile spread across Arenia's face, a mixture of relief and determination. "Together, we can do this. Together, we'll change the future." Jace took her hand, feeling a sense of calm wash over him. He had made his choice. No matter what came next, he was ready to face it, with Arenia by his side. The day had finally arrived. The time for talking, planning, and hoping was over. Jace stood at the heart of Dithra's royal palace, looking out over the vast city below. The streets were filled with Dithran citizens, both the loyalists and those who had once supported the rebels. The atmosphere was tense, but there was something different in the air today. It was as if the entire world was holding its breath, waiting for something to change. Jace looked over at Arenia, who stood beside him, her expression calm but determined. He had never seen her like this before. The weight of leadership, the responsibility of her people, rested on her shoulders, but she was ready. She had always been ready. "I never thought it would come to this," Jace said softly, his eyes still fixed on the crowd below. "I never imagined that I would be part of something like this." Arenia smiled faintly, her gaze never leaving the horizon. "None of us ever do. But sometimes, the things we never imagined are the things that change everything." Jace nodded. It was strange how much had changed in such a short time. He had come to Dithra as an outsider, an unimportant human, lost and confused. But now he was part of something bigger than himself. He had chosen to stand by Arenia's side, and together they had fought for a future where their worlds could be united. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of speeches, meetings, and tense negotiations. The rebels who had once fought for domination were now willing to listen, at least for the moment. The leadership of Earth, though hesitant, had begun to see the potential in this alliance, realizing that the benefits of peace far outweighed the costs of war. Today, the final agreement would be signed. The future of both Dithra and Earth would be shaped by the decisions made here and now. And Jace was at the center of it all. Arenia turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "Are you ready?" Jace looked at her, seeing the weight of everything in her eyes. She had carried this burden alone for so long. But now, they were together in this, and that meant everything. He nodded. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. Together, they walked to the center of the room where the leaders of both Dithra and Earth were gathered. The tension in the room was palpable, but there was something else too, a sense of hope. People were beginning to believe in the possibility of peace, even if it seemed like a distant dream just a few weeks ago. The room fell silent as Arenia stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Today," she said, her voice clear and strong, "we begin a new chapter in our history. The future of Dithra and Earth will not be written in fear or war. It will be written in understanding, in cooperation, and in hope." Jace stood beside her, feeling a swell of pride in his chest. He had always believed that there was something more to this, something worth fighting for. And now, as he stood next to Arenia, he knew that together they had made it possible. The room erupted into applause as the leaders of both worlds signed the agreement. The deal was done. Earth and Dithra would work together, side by side, to build a future where their civilizations could thrive in harmony. Arenia looked at Jace, a smile spreading across her face. "We did it," she whispered. Jace smiled back, his heart full of emotion. "We did." And in that moment, with the agreement signed and the future ahead of them, Jace realized that he had found his place in the universe, not as an outsider, but as someone who had helped bring two worlds together. With Arenia by his side, there was no challenge they couldn't face. The future was no longer uncertain. It was full of possibility, full of hope, and Jace knew, without a doubt, that this was only the beginning.